Just a couple of days after defending the law on sedition in the country to the Supreme Court, the government, in an about turn, appears to have changed its mind and is now saying that they're going to be re-looking at the sedition law, which is why they've urged the Supreme Court not to carry on with looking at this particular case. Is this a political masterstroke by a government, namely the Prime Minister, who's been repeatedly mentioned in the petition which has now been forwarded to the Supreme Court because there was a possibility that there could be an adverse judgment against the government on the law of petition? Or is this a government which has now well and truly embraced the need to be more liberal when it comes to getting rid of antiquated laws like the law on sedition? Joining us for her views on this, Mahua Moitra. Not only is she a Trinamool Congress MP in this, but also a petitioner. Mahua, the government has appealed to the Supreme Court and has said the Honourable Prime Minister believes that at a time when our nation is marking Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we need to, as a nation, work even harder to shed colonial baggage. Is this about shedding colonial baggage, or is this a political masterstroke in a sense?
It's neither. It's just a clever ploy to buy time. It's exactly the same thing they did with the marital rape issue in the Delhi High Court. The law's been there since 1870. 150 years have passed. This government has been in power for 7 years. If they wanted to do something with the law, they had 7 years, more than seven, almost 8 years to do it in. They've done nothing. It is only now that they realize that there's actually a real possibility of this being examined by a larger bench, of a 7-judge bench. Basically revisiting 1962 Kedarnath Singh, and which is why that they are trying to do this to buy time and basically to say, stay off. They're scared of what the court will do. They say, stay off, we'll do what we want. And then they'll just sit on it for years and years and years. So it's neither a political masterstroke nor some great new embracing of liberal ideas or wanting to uphold the constitutional, validity of the law. What they want to do is to just buy time.
So, Mahua, would you therefore, as a petitioner in this case, hope that the Supreme Court continues to hear it and then establishes a time period within which the government needs to act?
Yes, what has been quite encouraging in this is that the voices that have been coming from the bench have been saying that, listen, it's high time we hear it. Whether for or against, we will hear it and we will take a decision either way. That's been very, I think, encouraging. All of us who were petitioners and, have put in we are going to hear the reference tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the Supreme Court. So the hearing of the reference will be, we've certainly said that, look, you have to go into it a little bit. In 1962, during the Kedarnath Singh, you have to remember Article 14 and 21 was not really applied. And they heard it basically on freedom of speech, 19. So by what Mr. Sibal was saying now was, listen, let's put away 19. Let's just examine it with a 3-judge bench on 14 and 21. Mm-hmm. Let's not touch Article 19. Mm-hmm. What we are, of course, saying is that now with UAPA and with the NIA and with all these laws that are coming in, Kedarnath has already restricted. On paper, there is already a restriction. 1962, the 5-judge bench already said that you need imminent lawless action. Right. You need constitutional validity is upheld, but the restriction is that you have to subvert government action by incitement to call to violence. Mere criticism is, it's not sedition. But if you've seen in the last 7 years or the last 10 years, that's not exactly what's been happening.
No, it's not.
So
in
we
fact,
cannot
that part
use,
of it, the protection against misuse has been completely disregarded.
Completely. So we have to relook at Kedarnath, and a 3-judge bench cannot look at Kedarnath,
so
which is why a reference to a larger bench is necessary.
Just referring to what you're saying, when the government says, and the Prime Minister's name is liberally mentioned in this, it's almost like a political appeal to the Supreme Court, which I find interesting, that, you mentioned Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, you mentioned that the Prime Minister has done this, etc., etc. Be that as it may, if the government says that they are fully cognizant of various views on the subject of sedition, having considered the concerns of civil liberties and human rights, while committed to maintaining the sovereignty of India, doesn't this really beg the question, if you're so worried about human rights and civil liberties now, what stopped you from being concerned about it yesterday?
That's exactly the point. And in which case, let this be given to a larger bench, a 7-judge bench, and let the Attorney General has already stood up, who's the highest law officer of the land. He has already stood up and said he is ready to argue. So in which case, if the Attorney General is ready to argue, please stand up and please espouse your cause. Say that the Prime Minister is only too happy to get rid of this. And, let us examine it on 19, on 14, on 21, within a larger, I would say, benchmark, and have a 7-judge bench take it forward.
If
and
they
let
were
the
to
government
drop this altogether, is that something you would welcome? Because that's ultimately
not
what
at
you
all.
want.
Not at all. And I sincerely hope, and I am confident that the court in its wisdom will not do that.
No.
Will not
I'm
be
saying
taken
if
in
the
by this
government
court.
if the government were to drop the definition of sedition as it stands presently, is it then that you would welcome
I
it?
mean, yeah, obviously, but we,
That is your
the
goal,
government has
right?
been in,
But
the government
you're
has been
worried that
empowered.
they would alter it, with new grounds.
Vishnu, you are a news anchor, a sort of, a seasoned journalist operating in this environment. You tell me, do you have any faith in the government's good intentions? They've had 7 years or 8 years to do it. And they've applied sedition on everybody, from comedians to journalists. Nobody has faced it more than you guys. So do you have faith in that? I don't. I actually don't. And they will bring it back to Parliament and put some twist and turn and do something to it. And they'll say, look, we want reasonable restrictions. These are the restrictions. And they have a brute majority. They'll pass it.
All right.
And then again, we wait. We wait. So while this is literally on the eve of some kind of solution, I think I can just leave it to the judgment of the bench to take it forward.
All right. Well, let's see what finally happens. And perhaps it's going to be long drawn one way or the other. Mahua Moitra, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.